Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into the most compelling stories and unexpected insights from the world's information.
Glad to be here.
Today we're exploring a really intriguing question. What happens when a political candidate uncovers alleged financial misconduct within their own party?
Yeah, and how that kind of discovery can just completely shatter beliefs you held really deeply.
It's a powerful situation, and it perfectly sets up the story of Yokoi Sakura. This deep dive traces her journey. She went from being this, enthusiastic supporter of Japan's Sanseito party to becoming a whistleblower, uncovering alleged accounting fraud inside the party itself.
It's quite a transformation.
We're going to look at why she joined in the first place, her concerns about public health, human rights.
Which were very real to her.
Exactly. And we'll even touch on the party's unique historical narratives that she initially found appealing.
And our mission really is to pull out the key insights from her experience. It's a fascinating look at how someone gets immersed in an ideology, what it actually takes to break free from that, and then that whole difficult process of reevaluating everything you thought you knew.
And there are broader things to touch on too, right? Like media responsibility, the role of lawyers.
Definitely, we'll get into that.
Our sources for this are great. We've got excerpts from an interview transcript. It features a lawyer who calls himself a muscle lawyer, which is interesting.
Yeah, suggests a certain style, doesn't it?
It does, and Yokoi Sakura herself. Plus, we have 2 briefing documents summarizing their conversation.
So a really rich first-hand account.
Absolutely. Let's dive in. Okay, so the story really kicks off in 2023. Allegations start to bubble up that Sanseito might be inflating expenses.
Right, but for Yokoi Sakura, this wasn't just news. It hit very close to home.
How so?
Well, she personally discovered something fishy. Around 220,000 Japanese yen.
Which is, what, about $1,400 US or so? Just for scale?
Roughly, yeah. Fictitious expenses attributed directly to her activity fund.
Fictitious, like, for what?
Things like flyers, banners, business cards, stuff she absolutely insists she never created or ordered.
Okay, that's already a red flag. But who is getting paid for these phantom items?
And that's the kicker. The alleged recipient was a company managed by a Sanseito party executive.
Wow. Okay, so not just some random error. This point's potentially higher up.
Exactly. It suggests money might be flowing, improperly within the party structure. Raises serious questions about ethics, transparency.
So what did she do? Did she raise the alarm?
She tried. She went to the Kagoshima branch, spoke to the accounting staff.
And?
Their response, according to her, was basically just, that's fine as is.
That's fine as is. For fictitious expenses linked to an executive's company, that's bold.
It's pretty dismissive, yeah. Party officials apparently gave excuses too. Things like, the Prefectural Federation's finances aren't great.
Sort of implying it's okay to fudge things.
And they assured her, the responsibility lies with the accounting officer and branch chief, so you'll be fine. Basically, look the other way.
Don't worry your pretty little head about it.
Essentially. But then came the turning point. Her aha moment, you could call it.
What triggered that?
It was talking to her family. They weren't inside the bubble, right?
Right, an outside perspective.
And they immediately called it what it was. Fictitious slush money. They told her she'd be abetting fictitious claims.
Hearing it put so bluntly.
That's what made her snap out of it, as she described it. She even compared it to almost joining a cult and barely making it back.
That's a powerful comparison. Shows how deep she felt she was in.
It really does. It highlights how crucial that external reality check can be.
So the family conversation was key. How did the media handle this unfolding situation?
Well, the initial scoop seems to have come from Shimbun Akahata.
Okay, the Communist Party's paper.
Right. They apparently sent a reporter all the way from Tokyo down to Kagoshima to dig into it.
That's serious legwork. What did their article focus on?
Interestingly, it focused on the alleged fictitious accounting for other candidates. Cases where the paperwork had informally submitted to the election committee.
Unlike Yokoi's 220,000 yen, which was still kind of off the books at that point.
Exactly. Hers hadn't been officially reported yet.
Were other major outlets covering it?
Bunchen did. The weekly investigative magazine.
Yeah, they often break big stories.
They mentioned the Kagoshima incident, but it was part of a bigger piece on the Sanseito leader, Kamiya Sohei, and something they called Kamiya Girls.
Kamiya Girls, what's that imply?
Usually suggests, a group of particularly dedicated female supporters or candidates around a leader.
I see. Now, the muscle lawyer in our sources had some thoughts on the media coverage, didn't he? Particularly mainstream media.
He did. He was quite critical. He argued that mainstream outlets often hesitate to criticize political parties, especially during election campaigns.
Why?
He thinks they misinterpret neutrality. Like being neutral means saying nothing critical.
Instead of balanced reporting of facts.
Right, so he actually praised Akahata and Bunshin for not hesitating in this case. He saw it as them doing their job properly.
Interesting point about journalistic responsibility there.
It really is.
Okay, so that whole discovery is pretty shocking. It makes you step back and ask, how did Yokoi Sakura end up in Sanseito to begin with? Her background seems different.
It does. The sources say she had this long-standing desire, even from childhood, to do good for the world.
Like what?
Being a class representative, trying to help kids who are isolated, it seems like a core part of her personality.
So not just a sudden political thing, and her initial views were more liberal.
Yeah, she described herself that way, said she disliked Japan's sort of rigid rules and strict atmosphere.
Preferred a Western mindset, admired overseas culture.
Exactly, which makes her eventual alignment with Sanseito quite intriguing.
So what was the bridge? What connected those dots for her?
The COVID-19 pandemic, that seems to be the absolute key turning point.
Ah, okay. How specifically?
She developed really strong objections to the vaccine, or the injection, as she called it.
On what grounds?
She saw it as an untrialed, unknown drug. She was concerned about the mechanism, cells producing spike proteins, potentially messing with the immune system.
So safety and efficacy concerns.
Big time. She felt it was highly problematic as an experiment, particularly for Japanese people, who she believed weren't getting that seriously ill from COVID itself. She viewed it more like a bad cold or pneumonia.
And this concern wasn't just personal, right? It extended outwards.
Definitely. She was very concerned about children, felt they had no freedom, and were being forced into vaccination by parents.
Did she try to do anything about it?
Yeah, she mentioned organizing locally, gathering mothers to resist the mandates.
So activism started there. What about masks?
She had a strong stance on that too, called mask mandates the worst example of human rights violation.
Strong words.
She shared an anecdote about seeing people wear these transparent lace masks.
Which wouldn't do much filtering.
Right, but they were still considered okay. For her, that just highlighted the, superficiality of the whole thing.
And the lawyer in the source material, he chimed in on this.
He did. He agreed with her about the children's rights aspect during the pandemic.
Peso.
He argued that kids generally didn't get severe COVID, so forcing masks or vaccines on them wasn't justified. He also mentioned the parental lottery, genetics, and environment playing a big role in outcomes anyway.
Okay, so we see the path into Sanseito, driven by these strong convictions. But then looking back, Yokoi uses some pretty stark language about her time in the party.
She does. She admits, quite frankly, that she felt brainwashed or like a believer.
Brainwashed? That's intense.
Yeah, she explained that she hardly questioned anything the party did or said, just sort of accepted it.
How does that manifest? Can you give an example?
Well, she brings up the death of Kamiya Sohei's former public secretary. There were serious allegations around that, including power harassment claims against Kamiya.
Right, a major incident you'd think a candidate would be concerned about.
But Yokoi admits she just saw it as someone else's problem, not directly relevant to her.
Wow, a real disconnect.
And she noted there was basically no discussion about it among party members, which in hindsight, she now finds really suspicious. Like, why weren't people talking about it?
That silence itself becomes telling later on. So what created that environment of uncritical acceptance?
It seems like the power of the party's narrative was huge. Sanseito's ideology, especially Japanese first, clearly resonated with her initial feelings, perhaps in unexpected ways.
How did they frame that?
A lot of emphasis on Japan's glorious past, being the oldest country, the unbroken imperial line from Emperor Jimmu over 2,600 years.
Highlighting unique culture and history.
Exactly. And this wasn't just something she read, it was reinforced constantly by the people around her in the party.
Ah, the echo chamber effect.
Pretty much. It made the ideas seem very interesting and crucially good. When everyone around you is saying the same thing, confirming the narrative, it's incredibly hard to maintain critical distance.
It becomes your reality.
It really does.
And speaking of narrative, Sanseito's specific views on history were a big part of this, weren't they?
Yes. Yokoi mentioned that it was within Sanseito that she first really encountered an alternative history view.
What kind of view?
The core idea was that post-war Japanese history, the history most people learn, was essentially rewritten by the American GHQ, the occupation authorities, after World War II.
Okay, the victors write the history argument.
Precisely. They'd point to things like the War Guilt Information Program or the purges of public figures as ways the Americans supposedly removed people who knew the true history.
The pre-war narrative, presumably.
Right. And this led to some, well, very different interpretations of major events.
Like the war itself.
Absolutely. The Greater East Asia War, as they'd term it, was presented not really as Japanese aggression or invasion,
But as...
more like an advance to liberate Asia. The goal in this telling was to create a Greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere to unite and strengthen Asia against Western colonial powers.
That's a significant reframing of a very painful period.
Hugely significant. And it puts Japan's actions in a completely different moral light than the standard historical understanding.
So after leaving the party, how's Yokoi processing this now? She's out of that echo chamber.
It sounds like she's really grappling with it. She's now exposed to wildly conflicting information.
For instance,
Well, within Sanseito, she encountered claims like the Nanjing massacre did not happen.
a complete denial.
Yes, but then she hears other narratives saying Japan massacred millions in Asia, polar opposites.
That must be incredibly disorienting.
She openly says she's currently not knowing which side is correct. She feels she needs to study more to figure it out. It really shows the challenge of deprogramming, if you will.
Undoing that deep immersion.
Exactly. And the lawyer, the muscle lawyer, he commented on this too. He felt these kind of historical views, especially the extreme ones like denying Nanjing.
He saw him as dangerous?
Yes, he said they foster zealotry, that kind of fervent, unquestioning belief.
Okay, let's pivot slightly. The lawyer didn't just comment on Sanseito. He had some broader criticisms, particularly aimed at his own profession, right? The legal community.
He certainly did. He took aim, specifically during the pandemic context.
What was his main point?
He argued that most lawyers you might typically think of as left-wing or maybe part of labor defense groups, even those calling themselves human rights lawyers.
Yeah.
He felt they did nothing about what he saw as key human rights issues during COVID.
Such as?
He listed things like vaccine mandates, mask mandates, rules about silent eating, and what he termed child abuse related to pandemic measures.
But surely some lawyers were involved in pandemic-related cases, like vaccine injury claims.
He acknowledged that. He said, yes, lawyers handled vaccine compensation cases, but he kind of dismissed that as just business because those cases fall under existing laws.
Okay, so a framework already existed for those.
Right. His point was that these same lawyers often refused to take on cases challenging mask mandates or fighting for children's rights in that context.
Why does he think they refused?
He implies it showed they weren't committed to what he calls true human rights issues that might be more controversial or less legally straightforward.
And he positioned himself differently.
Very much so. He claimed he was one of the few lawyers actively using platforms like, formerly Twitter, offering to take on these kinds of cases.
Did he think they were winnable?
He asserted that cases against de facto vaccine mandates, like, say, get vaccinated or you're fired scenarios, were 100% winnable in court.
100%. That's confident.
Extremely. And his overall conclusion from this was pretty damning. He said it showed the low quality of lawyers in Japan when it came to defending fundamental human rights.
That's a strong charge. But Yokoi Sakura offered a different perspective on people who complied with mandates, didn't she? A more compassionate one.
She really did. It's a fascinating contrast. She looks at adults who went along with vaccine mandates, even if they didn't want to, maybe because of work pressure.
Yeah.
And she sees them as victims too.
Victims? How so?
Her thinking is that maybe they didn't have the ability or perhaps the personality to push back. Or maybe they just didn't have access to critical information, like the fact the vaccines were still technically experimental then.
So less about lack of principle, more about circumstance or lack of information.
Exactly. And because of that, she puts a huge emphasis on systemic failure.
Meaning?
She believes the responsibility of the government and media is huge for not getting that kind of critical information out there effectively. So the blame isn't just on individuals, but on the institutions that fail to inform them.
So we've really covered a lot of ground here. We've deep dived into this quite remarkable story of disillusionment, haven't we?
Absolutely. From the shock of alleged financial issues right up close.
To the immense power of ideology, the narratives, the historical viewpoints.
Yokoi Sakura's journey really throws a spotlight on that intense personal struggle. What it takes to confront facts that challenge a belief system you've become part of.
It shows how personal convictions, often starting from a good place, can lead you down paths you didn't expect.
And it hammers home how vital really verifiable information and just independent critical thinking are. Especially when you're navigating realities that are complex, maybe conflicting.
It's not just about facts versus fiction, is it? It's about competing narratives.
Exactly. And how those narratives shape how we see the world, how we see ourselves even.
Which leads us to a final thought for you, our listener. Consider this. We live in an age absolutely flooded with information. Different stories, different narratives, all competing for your attention. How do you tell the difference between a story that just feels compelling and a truth that's actually verifiable, especially if that truth makes you uncomfortable or challenges the beliefs of a group you trust?
Yeah. How do you keep that spark of independent thought alive, even when it's difficult or when the pull of belonging to the group is really strong?
Something to think about long after this deep dive is over.